Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome back to another review, this time of a Hornby tender engine. So a lot of my recent reviews have been concerned with the best ever or the worst ever of something or other, the cheapest or most expensive. So I thought today it might be nice to do a little bit more of a standard review. Yeah, okay, it's a BR Standard Class 4 from Hornby. Now, this is not a brand new release. This has been around for quite a while. I believe these were first released way back in 2010, 2011, something like that. So a good decade old, which makes me a little bit suspicious of the pricing with this one because the RRP on Hornby's website right now for this is £170.99, which is obviously an incredible amount of money for a 10-year-old locomotive. And of course, Hornby's latest releases are priced similarly to that. Obviously, you can get these a little cheaper if you go to the retailers. Hattons are selling these for £144. There's a link in the description if you want to check that out, affiliate link. Also, it's worth doing a bit of shopping around because you can shave a little more off that if you do some shopping. Either way, it will be interesting to see whether this loco, slightly old as it is, I'm not going to say outdated yet because I've never actually seen one of these, but certainly getting on a little bit in years, will be very interesting to see if this still lives up to modern standards. So come with me, we'll get this out and we'll find out for sure. So yes, as I say, this is quite exciting. This is the first time I will have ever been looking at a Hornby Standard Class 4. Obviously, I have looked at a Standard Class 4 before. That was the Bachmann one. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link up there to the review. But that one is even older than this. I think this was 2008 or something like that. And obviously, this is a bit newer than that. So it will be quite interesting to see how the two compare. Let me show you the end of the box then. You can see the product code there, which is R3547. Mine's BR Late 460, standard 4MT, class 7500. I've never heard them referred to as a class 7500 before, which is pretty interesting. And mine, as you can see there, is 75008. So that is the info on my particular version. I think Hornby do other versions of this as well. There's certainly a BR Black one and possibly, you know, a few other variations on the various BR Black and BR Green liveries. Right, let me show you the back of the box then. So quite obviously, yes, this is classified as a class 4MT. In the middle there, you've got some history of the class itself, so if you'd like to pause and read that, as always, feel free to, but I will give you some history in just a second. And then on the far side here, on the right-hand side, you have a little bit of a diagram there, which Hornby presumably drew to help with the design of the model. This one's dated 2009, so the design at least dates back way over 10 years. But yeah, fair enough. I've heard that this is a relatively decent model, so we will see. We'll see. Anyway, shall we do it then? Let's get this out and find out exactly what this is like. Oh yes, look at that. Can't see it too well, of course, through the front of the packaging there, but it does look as though it's going to be a good one. I've got a good feeling about this. I guess when something costs £170, you can't do any other really than expect great things from it. So let's see if that is justified or not, shall we? Okay, so there we have the blister pack. How does it weigh, first impressions? Yeah, there's quite a lot of weight there. It's often difficult to gauge whether it's heavy or not while it's still in the pack like that. But yeah, it feels promising, we'll put it that way. Okay, here we have the Standard Class 4 operating and maintenance instructions. Let's have a quick look. Man, it seems like a long while since I've looked at a Hornby one like this. So yeah, lubrication, yeah, that shows you all the lubrication points, that's great. Accessories, so that's all good, that's covered. Body removal, that's pretty important. And you can also fit your DCC and DCC sound, and there's all the guff about connecting the loco and tender together. Hopefully that won't be a problem today, because they're all connected, hopefully. And also fitting brake rods too. So there we go, that is the instructions covered, more or less. Right, let's get to it then. Now, I don't see any accessories here. What accessories are we supposed to have? Well, I can see couplings, screw links, and yeah, there's definitely some vacuum pipes and such. And they are not fitted to the model. I'm not 100% sure where I got this from. Hang on, I've only just unpacked this. Ah, this explains it. So I got mine from Derail's Models, and it says on the back that it's been tested pre-dispatch to ensure our satisfaction. And this is another reason really why I don't like retailers taking models out of the packaging and testing them. They don't put everything back in the box, clearly. I don't now have the detail bag, which is a bit of a shame. Right, let's get this out. Yeah, it's not a huge deal. I don't have a front coupling now if I wanted to fit one, but yeah, otherwise not a big deal. Right, oh my gosh, the tender looks particularly realistic there, and already I can see there's a lot of separately fitted pipework on the top of the firebox there. Got to be really careful with that. Right, I can see some damage straight away. The sort of handrail on the front of the smoke box is hanging off. So, ooh, I hope we don't have any issues with this, folks. We'll take a look at that and see for sure. But my goodness, there's a lot of weight to this. So the level of detail is immediately really obvious with this one. There are an awful lot of separately fitted parts, which probably helps to explain that massive price tag, doesn't it? Yeah, really impressive stuff and pretty heavy, so I'll weigh that as well. Anyway, we'll take a closer look at this in just a second, but first of all, here's a little bit of history on the Standard Class 4. So the BR Standard Class 4MT was one of several standard designs adopted by British Railways to the design of Robert Riddle's. The class was introduced in 1951 and produced for a total of 7 years up until 1957. The design was available in either tank or tender engine form, the two designs supposedly being very similar. The Class 4 was designed for mixed traffic, and it was ideal for use on routes for which the larger standard Class 5s were much too heavy. 80 of the class were built in total, but like most standard designs, they were fairly short-lived. The first withdrawal began in 1964, which meant that the class only spent a little over 10 years in service. Overall, though, 6 have been preserved, so it's not too bad, although obviously, yeah, the remainder was scrapped. Alright, so there is a close-up of the Standard Class 4 from Hornby, and I'm not particularly happy, I must say. Yeah, everything seems to be going wrong a little bit today. I won't dispute that the level of detail is fantastic, and we'll take a look at that in a second, but we have a quality problem, unfortunately. Quite a few areas of this leave a lot to be desired. First of all, one of the first things I noticed when I took a close look was that there are glue marks. On the firebox, as you can see, some of these plugs look a right mess. They're just covered in glue. And also on the side of the smoke box, very, very noticeable glue marks. The smoke box door has considerable damage to it as well. As you can see, we have the sort of handrail hanging off. I've not repaired that yet, although I will just push that back in. And the lamp bracket there that's supposed to be on the front of the smoke box there is completely missing, and I've checked inside the packaging and it is not present. Also, one of the cab windows has broken off. I did actually find that in the packaging, which suggests that that was done in transit. And on the back here, you can see that one of the buffers is wonky. Now, with an RRP of £170, none of those issues are acceptable in any way. Put together, it's just completely unacceptable. The problem with this is, because I know somebody at the retailer has unpacked and effectively used this, I don't know whether to blame Hornby for some of these issues. I mean, the glue marks certainly, but for the missing parts and broken parts, I don't know whether to blame Hornby or to blame the retailer. So once again, retailers, don't do it, particularly if you're not going to put all the bits back in the box, because already I've not got brake rigging, I've not got a front coupling, I've not got any of the other accessories if I wanted to fit them. No, I'm not saying 100% the retailer did this. It's very possible that they didn't. Whereas if they sent this out without putting their hands on it or anything, any damage, yeah, it's definitely the manufacturer's fault. I wouldn't expect to buy a TV brand new and have it unpacked with bits missing and whatnot. And these model railway items are absolutely no different. And whether it's their fault or not, if there are bits missing, it's easy to blame them. So retailers, don't do it. Right, let's take a look at some of the details then, of which there are many. Not a great deal of quality to any of them really though. So it's very plasticky, the bodywork is all plastic, as is the running board. There must be a fairly heavy chassis though, because it weighs in at 384 grams. But then again, yeah, the Bachmann Standard Class 4 did have quite a lot of die cast on it. The running plate, for example, was die cast, and I will have to weigh that at some point and compare it. But yeah, value for money ain't looking too great at the moment, is it? Let's take a look then. We have the painted detail, which is pretty good, it must be said. The boiler banding isn't 100% perfect, but I wouldn't say it's a particular issue. On the side of the cab, the application is just fine. You can see we have the printed classification, running number and lining there, which is fine. And there are quite a lot of nice details, such as the painted cylinders, which look fine, I can't fault those. The smoke box, which I've already showed you, does have the painted details on there, including the running number and shed code. And we do have the separately fitted smoke box dart, by the way, as well. So the decoration is absolutely fine. Now, on top of the firebox, you can see there is a massive array of pipework. Now, to me, this looks a mess, but it's obviously not Hornby's fault, because I guess they would have looked like that in real life. Yeah, they're not exactly a handsome design, are they? But it doesn't look too bad. The one thing I would say is that clearly some of these elements on top, the safety valves there, and what on earth this assembly is, obviously they're made of plastic and they don't look great as a result. They just look a little bit toy-like, don't they? So yeah, I think for the price it wouldn't have been unreasonable for some of this to be made of metal. And of course some of these pipes would have been much more rigid as a result of being made of metal. Underneath the cab as well, you can see there is a lot of pipework here. It's a shame none of that's metal as well, because a lot of you guys do send comments saying that the painted plastic pipework doesn't look very good, and I would agree. I suppose it's quite cheap to make, but then the model isn't cheap to buy, so yeah, there's no good reason for that not to look more realistic. We do have what appear to be metal handrails though, as you can see on the side of the tanks here, which are pretty good, and there's quite a lot of them, which is impressive. And you've got a great depiction of the reversing apparatus there. A really tiny little piece that, but it looks great. On top of the cab, we have a really nice feature whereby you can open and shut the sort of air intake for the cab, which is fantastic. I really like that. Let's carry on looking at the cab while we're here. As you can see, we do have glazed windows. Some of them didn't survive the journey, but for the most part they did, as you can see. And inside the cab, it looks super realistic. I really like this cab. Yeah, there's not a huge amount of painted detail inside there. I'm not 100% sure whether that's prototypical. I've never actually seen inside a standard 4 cab. However, there are 1 or 2 pipes picked out, and the gauges do have sort of dials and that painted on, which is really, really good. I personally, despite the sort of lack of painted detail, I mean, the water level gauges don't look fantastic, but besides all of that, it really does look an impressive cab. We have these cab doors pre-fitted, as well as handrails on the sides there. Yeah, they're not 100% straight. I don't know if that's an intentional feature. I wouldn't have thought so. Around the front then, we have the lamp irons fitted onto the running plate, as well as these little grab handrails for the ladders. The buffer beams are reasonably good. You can see there's a lot of riveted detail going on with that, and the buffers are sprung on front and back, which is really, really good. The wheel set looks fantastic. As you can see, we don't have exposed axles, which as always makes this look like a convincing model as opposed to a toy. And as usual from Hornby, we've got these beautiful connecting and coupling rods and valve gear really, all of which looks really nice and fine, and generally speaking, it's reliable too, good quality normally from Hornby. So there we go, that is the loco. As you can see, a lot of detail. I think it's probably quite a bit more complex than other models I've looked at before, and as a result the quality has suffered. They've opted for lots of separately fitted details, which is great, it must be applauded. However, the sturdiness of the model has taken a hit as a result. Overall, well detailed, but a little bit cheap and nasty for my liking, and also a bit too fragile. The tender though is something that I really do like. It really reminds me, at least in terms of its shape, of those tenders that a lot of IVATs, the IVAT Class 2 for example, used to use. Yeah, it's just got a beautiful shape to it, hasn't it? For all I know, it could very well be a similar or even the same design. Very interesting stuff. Anyway, we have the BR Lake crest on the side there, which has been printed on absolutely perfectly, can't fault that. And just like on the loco really, the lining is absolutely fine, can't be faulted either. And there's quite a lot of riveted detail, as you can see on the side of the tender. The cowl with this model looks particularly realistic, as you can see there. I think that looks as though it's removable, but to be honest with you, I can't see a lot of people wanting to replace that with crushed coal because it is very convincing. We have glazed windows on the tender, which is great, and also some of the handles and controls there have been picked out in the red, which makes them stand out beautifully. The underframe is very impressive as well. You can see we have quite a lot of moulded details there. Most of it is just moulded, although you can see we have a separately fitted water scoop underneath the frame there, which is great. Around the back we have more separately fitted lamp irons, as well as some painted details there. Well, normally that's to do with the capacity of the tender. I'll try and get a close-up. And as I say, yep, we have sprung buffers, one of which is mounted wonkily. Can't believe they can get things like that wrong these days. And of course, NEM coupling, which has been pre-fitted luckily, and I'm glad, because if you had to fit them yourself, I wouldn't have any because I didn't get the detail bag. Urgh. Anyway, that should just about do it, I think. Yeah, it's a very, very detailed model, almost detailed to a fault, really. Anyway, let's get this down onto the track. We'll do a little bit of performance testing and I will talk about the mechanism. So far then, between the different manufacturers, it's unclear which standard class 4 is the best. Hornby quite obviously wins on detail, but Bachmann quite obviously wins on quality. That all changes with the mechanism though, because these Hornby Standard Class 4s are far superior to Bachmann's in every way when it comes to the mechanism. So they have tender pickups, in fact they have all-wheel pickup except for the front bogie, so that's 6 on the tender, 6 on the loco, absolutely top notch. These are running a 5-pole skew wound motor, which is wonderful, and I've checked and yes, there are proper bearings on the wheel set, which is wonderful. On the downside, it's ludicrously over-lubricated, almost to the point of farce. When I service my locos, I use a tiny drop of oil on each axle, and this looks like it's been dipped into a deep fat fryer. It's insane how much lubricant is on there. In fact, I worry for the motor. I hope none of that has got to the motor. I felt a real urge to just clean it all off and start again. But I can't do that because then I've made changes to a loco and it's not going to necessarily run as it would for you guys straight out of the box. So yeah, if you get one of these, do check that the motor isn't swimming in oil. I've not actually had the body off, so it could well not be for all I know, but an alarming amount of oil nonetheless. Right, let's give this a test then. Let's see how it runs. It's not been running yet, so it's not necessarily going to be at its best right now, although we will do some more slow speed testing a little bit later once it's running. But here we go for the time being, turning it up. Let's see if it goes. Turning it up real slow. Has it started? I saw it twitch, but has it stopped? There we are. So that kicked in at a relatively high speed. That's not dreadfully slow, but it is dreadfully smooth, which is quite impressive actually for the first ever run. Let's try it backwards. Quite noticeably, the rear set of driving wheels starts a long time before the rest of them do, which is not very realistic, although I wouldn't say there's too much slack in the coupling rods. Let's try that forwards and pay particular attention to that. How much slack is there? Yeah, it's not too bad. Alright, a bit faster then. It's very smooth, not particularly quiet. There's quite a bit of noise, not really motor noise, just sort of a grinding, not really a grinding noise, almost a hissing noise, but not a steam-like hissing noise. It's quite odd to describe actually. Right, I'll run it up and down a few times and then we'll do another crawl just once it's had a bit of warming up. Yeah, that performance looks really, really good, and obviously the quality of the mechanism is fantastic. So it's no surprise. Right, let's try it again. Let's go real slow and gentle. I'm getting right down so I can look. This is a pleasure to run already. Yeah. So the crawl isn't dreadfully slow. That's about as slow as it can go, but it's acceptable. And it is clearly a really good runner. I mean, once we get up to, say, that sort of speed, it's beautiful. Pretty smooth. Not bad at all. Yeah, performance gets a thumbs up, folks. I think that's certainly true. So let's start it off and get it running. Okay. Yeah, this really is a splendid runner. Absolutely fantastic. As you can see, no problem whatsoever on any of the curves. No noticeable slowdown, even as it gets further from the controller. Absolutely top notch. So while the build quality is pretty shoddy actually, the quality of the mechanism leaves nothing to be desired. So it's not all bad. Not all bad. It is rather speedy, if I had to make any criticism. It's a little bit on the quick side, so perhaps the gearing isn't 100% realistic, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. You just slow it down a bit, don't you? Very good stuff. Right, I'll leave it to run in and I'll join you in just a second. Alright folks, we are back and running in has concluded, and yep, that was pleasantly uneventful, no derailments whatsoever, ran perfectly forwards for the first 30 minutes and did the same backwards. The one thing I would perhaps criticise is the lack of flywheel, because if I bring her forwards and then reverse her back into shot at about medium speed, if I cut the power, watch what happens. It stops absolutely dead. That's the only thing I can criticise. Besides that, it's got much more smooth and quiet, which was noticeable, and I'm hoping the crawl will be even better as well, because it wasn't that great earlier. So here we go. Oh yes. Yeah, I think that's a little better, isn't it? If I can get it in the sweet spot. Look at that. Yeah, it's not dreadfully smooth at that speed, but that is a bit slower than it was doing before. See if it's any better backwards. Yeah, even more so backwards. So yeah, the performance is really, really good. Now the body, as I say, is very, very plasticky. The running plate and the boiler and everything really is just made of plastic. However, the chassis is nice and heavy, which means that it is a decent puller. It's got a great amount of pulling power, 0.36 newtons, which should allow this to haul around 23 coaches on straight and level track, which isn't too bad. So as you can see, I've set up just 5 Pullman coaches. That should be very, very easy indeed for this loco. So without any further ado, let's start her off and see if she can couple up to them properly. Here we go. Look at that. What a crawl. It's also worth briefly mentioning the valve gear as well, because as you can see, not only does it look absolutely beautiful, but it runs without any issues whatsoever. It doesn't click or anything as it runs along, and the wheel set doesn't appear to bind up at the slow speeds. So really, really good quality valve gear. Has the coupling function as it should? Oh yes, it seems to have. It's got the coaches. Here we go. Let's see if she'll take those away. Oh yes. Quite a special looking train for her first run, as you can tell. And then on the middle line we have the better quality, but otherwise much less impressive Bachmann Standard Class 4, which doesn't have such a good mechanism or anything like that, but the build quality, as I say, is a lot better. And she's got a little train of tanker wagons, as you can see, and I think she does a pretty good job of hauling those. Looks decent, I'd say. And then on the inside line we have the similar, but of course slightly larger and heavier, in real life that is, not necessarily in model form. It is the Standard Class 5, this is also a Bachmann one, also in BR green too. Looks very, very smart. I do think I prefer the Standard 5 to the Standard 4, because obviously the pipe work and such looks a bit tidier. It's a very, very minor reason for choosing that as a favourite, but as I say, they are similar, there's not a lot in it. And yep, she's got some bands. So enjoy the running session. Let's catch up with the Hornby Standard 4 and see how it's getting on. Also, don't forget to see what other standards you can spot in the sidings, and there is an odd one out. So it is a shame about the poor quality and the price of the Hornby Standard 4, but the detail and the performance are definitely its strong suit. Yeah, bit of extra quality, bit more metal work. I think it would just about justify that 170 quid or 144 quid price tag. As it stands though, yeah, it's a bit overpriced for what it is, but not a bad model by any means. I think we've definitely seen worse, without a doubt. There's a Standard 5 looking very good. Great run at that one. I've got the pillbox on the back of there, I didn't mention that, but it's nice to get that one going again. There's the Hornby Standard 4. The pipe work isn't much more noticeable on that because it's painted. Wasn't the case on the Bachmann one, so it becomes a bit more anonymous, doesn't it? Would you like to see a comparison between the two, the Hornby and Bachmann? Let me know up in the poll. Here's a quick look at some of my ratings then for the Hornby Standard Class 4. Now if it's detail that you care about more than anything else, then Hornby beats Bachmann hands down. The level of detail is superb. While most of it is pretty much on the flimsy side, you can't deny that the level of detail is nothing short of impressive on this, so it has to be a 5-star. Similarly, the actual performance is really, really good. It can do a great crawl after being run in. Great puller, very smooth, not too noisy. It's just a good thumbs up on performance, can't really fault it. It's pretty powerful, 23 coaches, it is not bad at all for a loco of this size, and in fact it is more powerful than other larger 460s such as the Hornby Lord Nelson class, as a result of its decent weight. The mechanism is also top notch, 5-pole motor, all-wheel pickups, proper bearings, blah blah blah, really, really good. I think it would be better if it had a flywheel though, because you know, if you just turn the controller off, it stops dead. I just think it feels a bit nicer controlling a loco with a flywheel. Besides that though, really, really good mechanism. The quality though is really where this one falls down. It was massively over lubricated to the point where it could cause damage. There's a lot of plastic, the running plate, the boiler, everything is just plastic, including some of the details. Even some of the handrails are just plastic, which is really quite shoddy. A lot of the details were just hanging off the model or badly applied. We had missing lamp brackets, we had a broken handrail, glue marks all over it, wonky buffers, not great. The assembly left a lot to be desired, so the quality unfortunately has to be a 2-star. That's the only area really where the Bachmann Standard Class 4 wins hands down. Can't beat Bachmann on quality with this unfortunately. The value for money for £170.99 isn't fantastic either. Yes, the level of detail is fantastic, but the fact that it is so plasticky and, you know, not really that refined, I can't say that it's really worth 170 quid or really the 144 that Hatton's charge. But yeah, it's up to you. If you really want a standard class 4, this is probably the best option, although just be prepared to make repairs or even make a return if you've got quality issues like I've got. Overall though, that is 7.08 out of 10. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? Into the logbook it goes, 6th, just above the Dapol railcar and below the Baracaldo locomotive. Overall, reasonably impressed. Little bit of a slowdown on those curves with the coaches, but I'd say that's quite normal. It doesn't appear to be the motor's fault, it just the same as most locos do really. So overall, yeah, it's a good looking engine. I can overall recommend it, I would say, but bear in mind it is not perfect. It's a little bit on the flimsy side, so if you enjoy messing around with your locos, if you enjoy touching them, shunting with them, using them a lot, bear in mind it won't take a lot of hammer, this one. And there you have it then. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I did enjoy looking at that. It's a loco I think I will use because it's, I don't know, it's just got something about it, hasn't it? I think the prototype's pretty, not hideous, but not exactly the most handsome in the world. But something about the model itself has got real character. Can't put my finger on it, which is unusual, but yeah, just something about it that I really quite like. Mind you, I've said that, I bet I'll never run it again now, but yeah, I'd like to. One thing is for sure though, yeah, the level of detail was very impressive to say that this is 10 plus years old. Either way, that will just about do it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, of course, and don't forget to let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? I'd be interested to hear. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a great week. Take care.